All right, guys, welcome. This is the Behind the Edge podcast, a podcast about knives and the knife industry and knife people. And we've got Joe Flowers here today. I think we can safely call you a knife person. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and where we can find you if somebody doesn't already know?
Sure. A knife person, love knives way too much. How does that work with me in the industry and all that stuff too? Well, I got lucky. I'm a zoology major with a minor in entomology, which is study of animals, and then entomology, study of bugs, as my like quote unquote career path. Although that's not where I'm at right now. I went to NC State, did not take a lick of engineering, but loved knives. Back in the day, was always on the forums reading Tactical Knives magazine. In college, while doing all my animal stuff, I got lucky and started writing for a bunch of different magazines, including Tactical Knives magazine. Got to know a bunch of different companies just from using stuff and reviewing for the magazines, and then online and all that stuff too. And started designing because I had an idea just from being a knife nerd about the market and stuff, and started with Tops knives out of the United States and Condor tool and knife designing. Condors out of El Salvador. I've been into machetes my entire life, so it went hand in hand. They were really new to the scene. I was really new to the scene. They know what they were doing way more than I did, but they still didn't really know about the American market. So we basically held each other's hand and started on this new crazy process about 15 years ago. I design now for a bunch of different companies. And I just wrote them down because I can never remember anymore. And that sounds really narcissistic, but I promise you it's not. It's just because I'm a big industry hoe. Basically, long story short, work tough. Vic out of Taiwan is awesome because he was like a knife lover before he started that company. CJRB and Artisan out of China. Shade Indonesia out of Indonesia, coming up here soon, BPS out of Ukraine, a bunch of different companies coming up. Andrew Demko of Demko Knives out of the U.S. Lot of really cool knife companies to work for and design for. I also take people down to the jungles of South America, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, to go learn from real knife users. I like sound like I know what I'm doing, but like you can go down to the middle of the Amazon and meet some real knife aficionados, and that's way cooler. And hopefully, if everything goes well, I'll be expanding across the South America to Trinidad, Central America, El Salvador, and all that stuff too. But mostly just stuff in North Carolina where I live. So that's a whole lot of stuff to digest. But basically, I draw knives a lot and like knives way too much, like the
Fantastic.
Pepper's
Well,
Bunker.
yeah, yeah, good company here. I actually have a knife to show you.
Oh,
And
cool.
I'll be able to get this in your hands in just a couple weeks
Sure.
here at Georgia Bushcraft. Let me just mention while we're here,
Yeah.
Georgia Bushcraft is my favorite event ever. I love the guys out there. I love the event. It's the one event that I look forward to more than any other. And it's not just a knife event. I love being around knife nerds, but it's more around like my kind of knife nerds generally. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So that's coming up. What is it? The first weekend of April, I think, right?
Correct. The first weekend of April in Watkinsville, Georgia. You can find out about it at georgiabushcraft.com. A lot of various instructors will be teaching there, including myself. A lot of instructors are teaching classes. Heck, even my daughter is going to be teaching a slime class there.
There you go.
Uh, yeah, until you have to clean it up off the carpet here while she's experimenting.
Yeah.
And also, so there's a lot of classes for kids all the way up to adults. A lot of really cool gear to buy there too. Hey, will you have a booth there uh this time?
Yeah, I'll have a booth. I'll be
Cool.
selling some knives, probably some of my my sewn gear that I make, and
Oh, cool.
and
Dude,
I'll
you sew?
be yeah, so well, before I did the knife company thing, I had been making a rifle sling that I designed in
I remember that.
Afghanistan.
The
Yeah.
paracord one, right?
Yeah.
Way back
So
in the day.
I still do that and I've been doing it. I've just been advertising it less because I find myself having less and less time and desire to make them and um it's just hard. It's an
Yeah.
awful hard way
Well,
to make money.
the desire is very important, especially if you're going to be making the same thing all the time. If it's the same paracord, what's the paracord?
Yeah, so it's
I
a mil spec nylon webbing with paracord wrapped over it, and the paracord acts as padding, so it's comfortable, but also in an emergency you can take it off, and
yeah.
you've got like 36 feet of paracord.
I I remember you doing this like way back in the day though. Like I remember in the old school website, maybe like in my head, because I think we were both, were you on the forums like back in the day and stuff too, I think?
I was
Like,
on Bushcraft USA a little
yeah.
bit before I got kicked off twice,
Yeah, yeah, that happens. Sergeant
and
Mac's not on there anymore too, by the way.
let's
Forget
see,
that guy.
Blade forums.
Yeah.
There was this old zombie forum that was actually huge that I was into like
Zombie.
as a kid. Zombie Squad? Was that it?
Yes, I remember that. Heck yeah, Zombie Squad forums, dude.
That was
Yes.
a wild place, seriously. Like
Dude, that was OG.
people listening right now will be like, that sounds like the dumbest thing ever. No, it was like a serious forum with a
Yeah.
lot of people and a
Dude,
lot of real serious
remember
discussion.
all the Tom Brown tracker fans on that forum?
Yeah,
All over that forum. This was like internet. This was like in the heydays of
yeah,
like
it
the
was.
internet figuring out there was a knife community out there and all of us just trying to figure out how much of a bozo each of us all were
Right.
and stuff too. And there was like whole like little cults like back in the day. The cult of Infinity
Yep,
Steel and the
yep.
cult of various knife companies and knife makers and stuff too. And it's funny seeing that, written, the zombie tool thing back in the day. Remember the green and the snot green color that used to take over the
Just
whole world?
everything.
Yeah,
It
dude,
was
back
horrible.
World War Z days.
Yeah. I I feel like those were the golden days of the internet. Like YouTube was
Yeah.
more like individual passionate people making content as opposed to just being like super commercialized.
Absolutely. I loved it back in the, that's honestly where I get a good part of my foundation from is just the community back in the day on the forums and YouTube, just doing stuff being silly,
Yeah,
back in the day. My stuff is still out there from back when I was in college and I had the bee lab, right? I did beekeeping. Hence our talk about the electric fence. But
yeah, yeah.
back in the day of like just silly stuff where we were just putting it together on Windows. I can't remember what ridiculous Windows editing tool that was, but man,
Yeah.
that was awesome. You did that too back in the day as well,
I
I
was
think.
working on a lot of stuff. I started I think in probably 2014 or 2015, so not all the way back.
Dude, I met you way before then though.
I think so.
Yeah,
I
like
think
Shot
so.
Show or Blade Show or something. You had, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was some kind of big kookery thing that you liked.
Yeah, the Super Kook actually still a project that I'm working on.
Super cool.
Ross at Dry Creek Forge, who you know well, uh,
Yes, awesome
made
heat
them.
treater.
Yeah, I was working with him, and actually we're working. I got one of the original blanks. I had a couple blanks stolen from me, straight up. So
Oh man.
those kukris made a pretty big splash. Like a lot of people are paying attention. It was kind of a big deal, and I had designed them to go onto a loan with because I was on the season 2 like boot camp for a loan and thought I was going out for that. But I found one of the original blanks that I had, and he's grinding that now. And then the
Cool.
plan right now is I'll pay him for his work on finishing that, and then the rest of the money I'm thinking about getting potentially some really fancy steel and doing a batch of them with him.
Ooh, that'll be hard to do. Not impossible, of course. And if you ever need help, now I've been really fortunate to find out a lot about OEM. That's original equipment manufacturing. So guys, if you don't want to have your own forge, you can sometimes find other people around the US to make something for you. But the project he's talking about, that's big.
It's
When you
big.
do big blades, that's hard to do in the US. But people like LT Wright, they've done it in 1075. Now US made 1075, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah,
So, big blades are starting to become easier to make in North America. But, you know, Jacob, we got a problem now. There's no more, as far as I know, if I can think about this pretty hard. And, this isn't to write down, guys, because there's always an exception.
right.
I don't think there's a factory making, except for maybe Tops and the 130 machete, a factory in the United States making a machete right now because Ontario went under. And
Yep.
that's a big blade. That just shows you how hard it is to keep a business going while you're making a big blade, you
It
know?
really is. Well, and you've got, generally speaking, you've got a smaller target audience, less
Yeah.
people, I would say, generally. Everybody likes to watch videos, I think, about big knives smashing stuff and slicing through stuff. But then big knives are exponentially more expensive to make, more time consuming, everything else. You've got a lot more issues. They're more expensive. You got less people
Hmm.
buying. It's a hard business to get into. Actually, before I forget, real quick, let me show you what I was talking about. I'm going to show you this
Oh yeah.
when we get there to Georgia Bushcraft. This was made in Poland by
Ooh.
Amando Knives. And this isn't my normal style. I want to give a little thing here, and I'm sure it's not your style either. However, it is a piece that is exceptionally
Whoa.
fun to check out and to play with here. And
That is
Vanadis 4
exquisite.
Extra. It's absolutely ridiculous and
This
mind
is
blowing.
incredible.
So
It's no matter what style or not, when you see a really awesome knife, you can appreciate all of the look going into it. Man, that is incredible and unique.
so he
Gosh, dude.
and he did it all by hand, all carving on both sides, perfectly symmetrical, even carves into the bolts. I mean, every single detail, nothing is left untouched.
Dude, that's
And
like a Blade Show, like knife of the year type thing.
yeah, yeah, it really is. And I did a quick video about this. I plan on doing a lot more, and like half the people are complaining, like it looks gay. Man, it's wild and it's really fun. It's really cool. I'm glad I have it, and I'm
Dude, I
excited
love
to
how
put it in your
you
hand there.
just troll and don't give a shit about like the people underneath and stuff too. Like I can't do that because I'm always like Mr. Nice Guy. My mom loves watching my videos and the comments too. And
Right.
like the idiot who would say that, man, that looks like H.R. Geiger hand made that night. That is a work of art. That's like
It's
something that
wild.
should be um here it is. Hold on 1 second. I can do this.
Yeah.
I happen to have this book because I found out it's like not made anymore. Um, that should be like an art knife in one of these books
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
there's seriously like that would take control of that too. And this is something really interesting now. You see a lot of trends in the knife world, but there are ways now, I think, with the explosion of the internet, where people are starting to be able to put like a crazy looking knife together that's sexy as hell, but still not ridiculous.
Right.
Like you're not seeing so many pry bars, sharpened pry bars
Thank
anymore.
the Lord.
Yeah. That early 2000s grind stuff. Even with tops, I've been working with the company forever and back in the day some of their stuff was so thick I couldn't figure out how they were doing it while saving on shipping. And now they're doing a lot more, thin stuff.
Right. Right. So I think
What's
one sorry.
uh real quick, what was the thickness on that knife that you had, the
So I
Poland knife?
believe off the top of my head, which isn't the most reliable, I believe we're looking at 5 or 5.5 millimeter thickness. So just about 3/16
Okay.
of an inch.
Yeah, okay. I was
And
wondering
so what
how
I
he did that crazy dimple on the top. It looks like Like that's crazy. There's even channels
Yeah,
on the top of that.
and on the bottom.
Whoa.
So there are some things for practical use that I'm gonna make a special video for him going over some things that I would recommend he touch up for practical use because the cool thing even about a lot of knife art makers is I think they still appreciate seeing their art be used.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised with this thing in hand, as wild as it looks. It's actually fairly small tweaks that I would make to take this to being just totally practical. So it's a mind blowing piece. It's a joy to use. The edge geometry is amazing. The handle geometry is amazing, and I realized I had a Chris Reeves Green Beret 7 and a little Survive, and I thought
Yeah.
when I heard about this guy, he's still very small. I mean, I think maybe less than 1,000 followers on Instagram.
Woo.
I asked him how much something like that would be. This is kind of crazy. He told me $800.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's a steal for that.
That's the thing is I was like, wait, I could sell this Chris Reeves that I don't love and this Survive and get that. I could trade these other two knives that I already have sitting here and pick this up. People don't understand. This is like a $3,000 knife. I mean, if the
Yeah,
guy's
easily.
worth, I mean, because his skill's there, the time is there. So, anyways, so
Dude, that was Malanika back in the
yeah,
day.
yeah,
You could pick up his stuff for like 200. I actually have one of his old stainless knives that he made for me back before he got popular. And then, when they start to see that, the influx of it's really, really fast.
yes,
Jacob, back in the day, Tactical Knives magazine would like make or break a lot of makers. So like there are some that we knew about in the early 2000s and stuff, but like when a custom maker would get in Tactical Knives magazine, that could set them back 2 years. And that was the norm. And sometimes they wouldn't even take some makers because they were worried that they were showing like a unicorn product that somebody couldn't buy. And now today with the Instagram, somebody might have like a flare up during the year, and next thing you know, they're in the next Ray Laconico or next, big maker.
that's kind of the cool thing about being as obsessive probably as we are is the ability to find someone before they get discovered. And I would also like if someone's really talented, I'd like to have a part in them being discovered because I feel like they
Yeah,
deserve it. So I'd like to
yeah.
help them if I can.
That's the cool part too. You have that ability, especially with YouTube now too, and with followers, with Patreons and stuff to really get in that market and get around the absolute travesty that is Instagram and all that stuff too, which is just ridiculous. And that's like it's so stupid because I completely like watch Instagram way too much, even though I'm super duper banned on that too.
Right.
So like I really need to just, update my website and get around that. But, even that happens, people see, what's going on. This is where they get their news now. I get half my knife news from you. When I see that you posted something, I'm like, oh crap, something's happening. I got to get onto the
Right.
prepper's bunker and find out who messed up now.
Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, it's wild the industry, the market, and the everything. It's really interesting to see where the flow of information is at through different timelines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Where do
wild.
if you don't have for you as somebody who's giving me the information, where are you getting your information from if there's no more forums? Like I try and follow Facebook, and I do have like a good like circle of friends who message and like let me know of like stuff that's happening. But when MagnaCut, when that Crucible thing happened, I had to start looking everywhere for it. I didn't know who to go to, you know.
So I'm very blessed. Well, you're very connected in the industry. I'm very connected, I would say, in the industry with a lot of different companies.
Yeah.
Ontario's is back in limited production right now. in Virginia. I'm in direct contact with them. Um, I I want to see them be successful so bad that it hurts, honestly. Like I'm
Hmm.
so so in their corner hoping they do this right. But I've got a lot of people. One thing that I've noticed is I make myself so accessible as a public figure that when people experiencing something want someone to know about it, a lot of times they'll come to me. So, like, workers at Ontario were messaging me and telling me what's going on behind closed doors and stuff like that at a certain point. Because if I don't know if you know, remember this, but I had made a video saying that they were going out of business like 2 years before it was public. And they were saying they were in the process of bankruptcy already.
Mm.
Um, and it was based on my experience and what I know about the industry and what I know about business. I was like, these guys are literally on their way out. They're trying to sell everything that they can to get as much money as they can to be able to stay above water or whatever when they get out, but they're going out. Ontario emailed me and were like, "We're not going out of business." Distributors were emailing me like, "Where'd you get your information from?" And I was like, "Look, I said it in the video. This is why these guys are going out of business." Well, as it turns out, when I got all of the information and court information on their CEO and all of that crap when it actually happened, and luckily at that time, I knew the guy who made a website that made all court documents public and free information. So then I had the ability to go get stuff that had traditionally not been gotten. But, anyways, I don't know. Maybe I think sometimes I've got a bit of a nose for things. I've got a little bit of discernment and I start asking questions, and sometimes I get lucky and ask in the right places. And sometimes people reach out to me and they're like, here's where I am and this is what's going on. And, you know, I think I try to be a real person and not like an online character, right? And
Yeah.
so I think like, and I'm like, here's my email address. I think people feel more comfortable reaching out and sharing with me because I'll sit there and talk with them because I'm a real guy, you
Yeah.
know?
That, the in-person stuff has become so much more important. And I think that's where George Bushcraft comes in,
Absolutely.
SHOT Show even. I mean, Blade Show for sure, because at least for me being someone who has to work behind the booth now, World's Smallest Violins and stuff like that. But the industry shows versus like something open to the public, it's really important to get out there and see the difference that you're doing rather than, looking at the 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 soul sucking screen and stuff that's on there. So, that's becoming more and more important now, at least for me. It seems like the community is getting more and more relaxed about hanging out with each other and stuff too.
Well, not only that, but you were
Sort
talking
of.
about forums and how all of this other stuff works. The other
Hmm.
thing about meeting people in person, um, um, what's the name of the guy who does Hobo Forge? Uh, like Delta Force survival instructor, North Carolina, I think.
Hobo Forge?
Yeah,
Shoot, dude. I'm so bad with names, it's not even funny
I'm
right
so
now.
mad at
And I
myself
know,
right now.
dude, I'm bad with names no matter what. Everybody, all the time. But I know what you're talking about.
Ugh. Okay, well, he came and shook my hand at Georgia Bushcraft and was like, I wanted to see you in person, see you, how you interact with people. I wanted to meet you and talk to you to see if you're the same guy that you are online. We're in a society where there's so many people trying to fake it till they make it and like BS people into success that I think meeting people in person and shaking their hands and seeing their product and being able to look at it in hand is so much more important than it used to be. And you've been in this industry long enough. There have been con artists and scammers who pop up every year. There's a new one, and then a whole bunch of people get ripped off, or the products that they get don't look anything like the pictures. It's a
Yeah,
never-ending
yeah.
story. My first
I've been
custom knife was
on
like
the
that.
industry, I've been on both ends of that too, and I'm not defending. anybody or anything like that. But gosh, do I see them come in ebbs and flows in the product too, or it's like maybe the product is pretty good, but the skill set behind the thoughts behind it, you're just like, where is it at? And um that's just, something that happens. But now that the adpocalypse and the all that stuff's happened on YouTube, I haven't seen as much of that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as you think. But
Yeah, my first knife was from a guy whose brand was Cutthroat Knives, and it was a tracker, and it hardly looked like the pictures that he had sent me. It was horrible. Then he stopped sending people their knives. He started stealing everybody's money, doing drugs hardcore. He came back with a different brand name, did it for 6 months.
what was the
Did it
brand name?
again. I don't remember. The first one was Cutthroat Knives. It was that
Man, there was
this
one guy. There's some of these guys who just ebb and flow. You've seen it so many
yeah,
times.
Faction Knife Company. I think it's Dustin Pugh. That dude did it hardcore, and
Man.
and so there's always like tells. That dude advertised this knife as an indestructible breacher, like hard use tactical knife with a Scandi grind because it's the toughest grind, and it wasn't a Scandi grind, and it's a eighth of an inch thick with a thin tip. And I'm looking through stuff, and I'm like, well, everybody's so surprised that they got ripped off by him, but like he didn't even know what he was talking about in his own ads. And I don't understand how you got so many followers and so many sales, but what do you expect? The dude doesn't even know what different types of grinds are. So, yeah, like you said, the ebb and flow is real. Accountability, it can be, you would think accountability would be easier with the internet and everything like that. I don't know that it is, but again, it's good to meet people face to face
Yeah,
and really
yeah.
see what's up. And
It,
it's
it
harder. It's
is.
harder for like regular people to do that. You can't go to SHOT Show, and
Right,
not a lot of
right.
people can go to Blade Show. But man, Georgia Bushcraft is so accessible.
Yeah, it really is. And it's really fun. It's everybody has to crap in the same porta potty, everybody's under the same sun. So everybody's just if it's great out, you're having the best time. If it's raining out, you're puddle stomping all together. So it's really fun,
Yeah,
especially now that it's been more expanding. And there's a lot of different events that are similar to that. There's a lot of overlanding events out there. There's a ton of primitive skills events with guys who know way more than both of us put together. They live in a geo metro with a teepee that they have strapped on top, and that's their life. They
yeah, yeah,
they come out to North Carolina to teach at one point, and then go back to Arizona and stuff. But there's a lot of those events, almost like one every weekend if you look at it hard enough in the Southeast. I know you're up in Kentucky, right?
yep.
And up there's like for instance, mid Ohio Nappin. There's a huge
Mhm.
nap in there. I can't remember what the acronym is. That's really, really, really awesome. Some really, cutthroat survival guys who live there and stuff too. But it's always been around. It's just cool to see that, like the bushcraft world, quote unquote, the people who like to use gear and knives and like me like camouflage way too much, all are finally hanging out together and
Yeah,
stuff too.
absolutely. So I think you wanted to talk about, we got a little bit of bears and bees and electric
Yeah.
fences.
Well, first off, I've got quite a few questions.
Yeah, yeah,
Your
shoot.
favorite camouflage and why?
Oh man, that's hard. Probably alpenflage. It's known as a Swiss pattern. It actually goes back to a late World War II German pattern. It's the first camouflage ever used to defeat night vision before any other country in the world had night vision.
That's
Uh,
so cool.
it's wild. Germany actually went into World War II with night vision for their tanks. But anyways, I like it because I grew up using it.
Hmm.
Everybody hated it because it looked so ugly and stupid. So you could buy it for literally like a dime or a quarter, and it was everywhere. And it doesn't look like it would work, but it really, really does. So I would
Oh,
paintball in
awesome.
it and stuff. Right.
Cool.
So it was really cool, and I wear it a lot. So
Is that the
those
one that I see you in the videos with a lot?
yeah, a lot red,
Okay.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it's so cool.
Yeah, so not the most, not like super like objective or like logical reasons to pick a camel pattern. Very personal, but I like it.
No, I love it. I really thought that was pretty cool of you. I'm into tiger stripe for
Yep.
the same reason, you know. I never was in the military personally, but my dad was a Marine in Vietnam in kind of it was recon, but they called it quote unquote special forces back then. But anyway, blah
Yep.
blah 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 blah. He knew a guy in SOG who gave him some of the very first tiger stripe um and dad brought it back. It was just some like skivvies or something too, and it became like a rag in our garage to clean the guns with and stuff too. So
Right.
I was always like using this. So now like I have tiger stripe Crocs
Yeah,
and just little things here and there. That's my go-to, and it's just for ridiculous reasons, but the same
that's
reason I notice
fantastic.
that I'm like, this man has taste because
Yeah.
it's always that same style. And one of the reasons I think I picked that up is do you remember Sportsman's Guide, Jacob?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they sold overalls, and every once in a while they had that like buyer's guide, and my dad and I were members of it. Actually, still am a member of Sportsman's Guide, um, Buyers Club. But they
Yeah.
had overalls, and I think it was in a very, very similar camouflage. You had that same big red characteristic splotch in it. I'm not completely
Yeah.
sure if it was the same, but I have those, and those have always been like my spelunking and caving overalls. So they're like restitched, you know how we were talking about stitching and stuff,
Yeah.
like all on the corners where they're all like messed up. But sometimes that'd be my bee suit too when I couldn't find anything else, and it's just torn to shreds. But I
Yeah.
remember that big time when I saw your YouTube videos.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like it. And the other thing is
So,
like, well,
oh, go ahead.
real quick, here in Kentucky, I have to have permethrin treated clothes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I wash all of my permethrin treated clothes together, but I do it rarely. They can get a little bit ripe before they get washed, because
Hmm.
I want to keep that chemical in them as much as possible. So like, I'll have like my church pants and then maybe like one other set of pants and shorts, and like everything else is permethrin treated. So my whole closet being camo junk that's all permethrin treated, it makes it easy for me to have like this degree of separation.
Yeah, it's like a uniform.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
with permethrin, with permanone, with any of that stuff, if you um heat your clothes on low or use low on your iron, it opens up the fibers, especially with anything cotton based, and can make the permethrin last uh almost as much as insect shield
Nice.
for the old clothes. So that's really important. Backpacker magazine does not want that to be out there. But yeah, so if you open up the fibers, heat it on low, and put the application on there, especially during a hot day, it makes it last like not just twice as long, way much, a lot longer.
Perfect.
Too. Don't do that if you keep bees though. Um,
Not good
my
for the
my
bees.
yeah, or if you're caving too, because you don't want the permethrin to get in the cave setup.
Right.
So I don't have that on my camouflage clothes, but I have used that on beekeeping. Dude, I got like mad beekeeping skills. Not trying to be cocky about it, but I did it 9 to 5 for the Department of Entomology. But for the first time in like 20 years, I don't have bees right now because a bear broke into my garden and
Yeah.
destroyed all my beehives. So I am in the market for an electrical fence. Can you tell me
So
about them? What I should
yeah.
do?
So what I've got, the when you're shopping for an electrical fence, generally they will make it very easy for you to know what the fence is for. So they'll have like a tiny little box that you plug in, and they'll have like a picture of like, let's say, a chicken and a dog on it. But then the goats will have a line through it, and the bear will have a line through it, and the deer will have a line through it, right? Like it's not for that. And then you get the bigger, more expensive boxes, and maybe it's got horses on it, but then still the goats are crossed out. Like you got a shot. A goat's probably more stubborn than a bear, honestly.
I was about
Uh,
to ask, what's up with the goat? Do they have that next to the T-Rex or something? Or
right, that's pretty much what it is. That's pretty much what it is. So what you want to first decide how you want your electric fence to be electrified, whether you want a solar, which is just a battery and a charger, or whether you want to plug it directly in. I personally have had more reliable luck with a plug-in style energizer. They're cheaper. Uh, they last basically forever, and they're just very reliable. They hit really good. Your solar ones are more expensive, and the battery only lasts probably 12 to 18 months. You
wow,
start
okay.
Yeah, you start getting a little bit less and less and less shock over time. It takes a little bit longer to hit. And then a lot of people will throw their setup away when it stops hitting. Actually, you can just buy the batteries and they're only like $20 and you can swap it yourself and you're good to go like new. But you want to make sure that you have a box that will hit what you want it to hit, which is going to be something that's going to hit hard with a bear with all of that fur. And then you want to make sure that you're using way less length than it's designed for. So the one I have right now says it's for like 24 miles. I've got probably 2 acres or an acre and a half fenced, but I've got 5 wire. So you got to kind of take that into account. And then the other
Wow.
thing is you've got to it can be difficult if your ground is really weird. There's different ways to do grounding wires and like chicken panels on the ground and stuff like that. If you can't get a good ground and nothing will work, most people don't have to worry about that. But you need to have enough grounding rods. That's important. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, it's also important like how you look at it. If you look at an electric fence as a permanent barrier, you're probably going to be let down. Because if all you've got is wires of electric fence or electric and barbed wire, and the animal gets hit once, they might come back in 2 weeks and realize that they don't get hit unless they touch it for a second or 2 seconds. And if they want something bad enough, they'll push through and realize they only get hit maybe once. And once they can push through, they'll never respect the fence again. It'll be
Dang.
nothing to them. So you have to have something secondary. You have to have an actual physical barrier as well if you can, like ideally.
Okay.
So that's going to come down to like how much land you need to fence off and what you can do. If I wanted to keep a bear out, I would probably do cattle fencing. It is not fencing like you would think of it as flexible, but it is a solid panel, 12 feet long with 4 or 6 by 6 squares, and it's very strong. And it's, if you've got it connected and supported well, it barely flexes, it's not coming down. And if you've got electric on the outside of that, the only things coming in are going to be jumping over. That's
Got
the
it.
problem with deer. If you really want to keep deer out, you need like a 15-foot tall fence.
Yeah, yeah, like they have around the wildlife places.
Right.
So this is the situation I got.
Yep.
Actually, in the room that you see right here, it's a small loft on like a high level, and then there's a cantilever deck pointing out there. I'm gonna have that right over the bee yard because I'm moving the bee yard over here, so that if I hear him in the electric fence, I've got the pew pew there to make some honey flavored jerky out
Yeah.
of him for when he
Yeah.
comes back.
Yep.
So there will be a secondary layer of walls. It may not be physical like a 6 inch by 6 inch cube. It might just more be like a 308.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's a good way to go. And the other thing too is usually, even if animals are no longer afraid of an electric fence,
mhm.
if they've already been shocked by one, they still try to go through pretty quickly. Chances are, in a situation like that, they're going to make noise. But every animal two-legged or four-legged, the first time they get hit by a fence, they make noise.
Yeah.
They're gonna yell, they're gonna run into stuff. They're not gonna know what happened. They're gonna make some noise, right?
I'm
So
gonna put that blink out on there then.
yeah, so with that plan that you have, if those beehives, if they were 300 yards from your house, that might not work so well because you might not ever know. But if it's closer,
Oh, it's
yeah,
real
it's gonna
close. Yeah.
work.
I
Yeah,
think it's going to be real close just so it keeps the bears away too because
that makes
these
sense. Yeah.
bears, I've seen them on the trail camera. They're smart bears. They're big
Oh yeah.
for a reason because they've kept away from humans. And
Yep.
I'm not mad at the bear because I didn't have an electric fence out. So what can I do?
Right.
Especially as a zoologist, I didn't take the precautions for it. But if they do mess with your agricultural thing, be it bees or something like that, in North Carolina, you're good to go with it. And I already checked with the wildlife officer, but they're smart. So if it's a mom with a cub, I have to bury the electric fence because they will dig underneath it. They will push a tree over the fence line to get over it to get to your
Yep.
bees. It's crazy. And they're going for the protein packed morsels, and they're not necessarily the honey, although that's an added benefit.
Yep.
Um,
So when it comes to that, I don't know anything about an underground electric
no, yeah,
because if my fence touches the ground at all, it's out.
right. I have to put a line very close to the ground, but not on the ground.
Yeah, so that's what I
It
do.
also help with skunks too.
And goats. I mean,
Yeah,
not that you
and
have to worry about
goats.
that. So yeah, with the goats though, I have to put a line that's only 2 inches above the ground or so, and then I do another four lines above that, going up to about between 3 and 4 feet. But so the other thing with an electric fence is every single time you have a windstorm, you have to go out and walk the perimeter. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, 100%.
and then really it's prudent. It's not completely necessary, but it's really prudent to even once a month through the summer go out with a weed whacker and weed whack under or along that
Yeah.
fence to keep anything from touching it as much as you possibly can. So a good
Unless you
fence,
have goats.
yeah, well, and the goats can be really weird and picky about that, but for the most part, yeah, the goats will keep it eaten down there. Now, for me, I have electric wire, and then I have 2x4 fencing, and stuff will grow
Mhm.
through the 2x4 fencing, and the goats a lot of times will leave that alone, and it can grow. So I still go through, and I weed. I like to weed eat about 3 feet on either side of the fence.
Okay,
And I
cool.
find having an open pathway like that also helps less stuff fall on it. But my fencing's still right through the woods here in Kentucky, cliffs, rocks, crazy hills, and everything. And so still, I get trees falling on my fence and I get all kinds of stuff like that all the time. And then the problem with my fencing style with the 2x4 fencing, the electric, is if the 2x4 metal fencing gets pushed into the electric fencing, it no longer
Oh
works
man.
either.
Yeah, yeah, it'll short itself out too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things to consider. I got crazy with it when I first did fencing. With all of my different layers, it was all a single line of wire. So I went all the way to the end and then looped up and went all the way back
Like it.
and looped up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't find like good advice or directions on how to do this. I feel like a lot of it is like word of mouth. I've learned now you don't have to do that. You can have one line coming down and have five lines going off of it.
Ah,
You know what
okay,
I mean?
cool.
So you don't have to get like I was getting crazy with like because I had also had different pens, so they would like the line would go through the fencing and back the other way, and I'd make sure I cut a little hole in the metal fencing for it to. I did so much work, and I just didn't know, you know. But it's you know, it's a good way to go, and there's a chance that if a I think if a bear there's a chance if a bear got hit by it once, it would never come around again. But there's also a chance with how thick a bear's fur is that it might take them so long to get hit or so much committing to get hit that they might still come through. But like I said, and like you mentioned, once they get hit, they're gonna make noise.
Yeah. My next door neighbor, we live in an area where there's a very specific type of tree called sourwood. It's only at like 3,000 feet.
Mm,
And it's a really, really good honey. And so this other beekeeper brings about 70 hives onto my next door neighbor's property. And I help him with it too. And he had to do 2 layers for the electric fence, and that was able to keep the bears out this year. But he's
nice.
had problems year after year after year until my neighbor made a lot of noise back and shot one.
Yep.
And that worked too. But it tends to be that these bears are like right at the cusp of being a nuisance animal. So they're pretty smart of going, hey, I've lived this long, I've have a butt full of rock salt, from being
Right.
shot at and stuff.
Right.
So hopefully that works. So we'll find out. But if not, we'll either have really good honey or really good bear jerky at the fall gathering, not at
Yeah.
the spring gathering. No honey at the spring gathering, I'm afraid.
Yep. Yep. Um, oh, so speaking of the spring gathering again,
Yeah.
you mentioned you're going to be doing something a little bit different, maybe trying to do some Jeep camping, and you had mentioned your collection of tents. So what's up with that?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I wrote for a bunch of magazines back in the day, and they want you to review this piece of equipment, and then always, as a gentleman's rule, back in the early 2000s, we would offer to send it back, and do all that. But like 9 times out of 10, they would let you keep the item, whether it be the knife review or that or the other. And at least for me, I never felt good selling them.
Right.
I'd trade them every once in a while just because it'd have like, so much stuff. But all the tents I would always keep because I'd be doing a lot of kids camps, a lot of outdoor camps, and I did a really good job. I've done a really good job of keeping them pristine.
Hmm.
So now I have a whole bunch of like really old school, outdated tents that just smell. No matter what you do, they still have that nylon smell and look beautiful, but are still delaminating right on the top and all of this stuff too. And I have like 10 of them.
Right.
All of these equipment, it's the type where it's just bad enough not to throw away, but not, do you have that
So
problem?
the delamination thing actually was something I was going to ask you. I find that with anything that I own that has glue on it at all, or anything that's kind of a tech, like a modernized, lightweight anything, especially probably partially because I'll store it in the shed where it gets hot and then it gets cold. But
Hmm.
I feel like almost anything I own that's like lightweight or anything, after like 5 years for the most part, I start having issues with anything glued, especially. So tents and stuff. I was going to ask you about that.
Absolutely. And there are two ways of this. The first thing is it's a glue base, so it's a chemical base, so it's breaking down. The other thing is some of these companies, including companies from China, have to design their products to biodegrade. And I
Mm,
was like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, because like otherwise there's going to be 15,000 canvas tents in the landfill and stuff too. So it took my head to like wrap around that too. But then again, that's why I'm bringing something that lightweight out there instead of my 60-pound canvas tent that I have at my house. That's going to be an heirloom for my kids,
yeah.
but also isn't delaminating when I'm looking at it too. And dude, this is the same deal with some of my remember I wasn't in the military, but I'm a hoarder with good equipment that lasts forever. Some of my like late 90s like duffel bags and stuff, the lining on the inside of the military duffel bags is starting to delaminate too. But it's not like bad enough to go, ooh, this is 70s. They got to throw it away. It's just like bad enough to go, well, yeah, I'm not ready to throw that away yet. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm like at the point where it's like I've got all these old school REI tents and some tent companies that aren't even around anymore. But like I haven't figured out if I want to throw them away or not because they're so useful.
Yeah, I had a Mountain Hardware and a couple others that just started giving up, just totally
Yeah.
giving up. And I just threw the threw the canvas or the nylon part in the trash, and then the poles and stuff like that. I wanted to do the same thing. I was like, man, maybe this would be useful. And then I was like, I can't. Like, I've got too many maybe this would be usefuls in my life. So they went into the scrap metal pile. I think every redneck needs a scrap metal pile that they fix one time a year.
Definitely. I mean, you have to have one for your temples because you're able to, all that stuff, especially if you have I don't know, even like a hunting blind or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But
Well, and
man,
you know what else? I was looking at like nice, like canvas tents, like you mentioned. And that's part of the reason I bought this whole camper is because I was looking at a lot of the canvas tents, and a good one is thousands and thousands of dollars.
yes, absolutely too. And then, and I have a bunch because people get tired of those things and they give them to you.
Right.
And once you've done about three or four big events where they get wet and then you have to and
Set them
they
back up
already
and dry
weigh
them out and clean them.
yeah, and they weighed 60 pounds to begin with and oh dude, it's
And that's the other
it,
reason I didn't get one. Being in the military, we're always setting up and tearing down tents, and then all the privates got to go spray them off, and they've all got to be stored properly and all of this stuff. I'm like, man, I mean, that's cool, I guess, but like, I want to use a tent with my family and with my kids. And if it's that big of a pain in the butt, I'm going to be the one doing it. Yeah, it's a lot. People don't realize
yeah,
like
dude,
the setup and the teardown, like it's the worst.
really is. In having these tents, I have a lot of tents for expedition stuff that I do. I just did one with Peter Magnan, with 23rd Veteran, down in Florida, where we went down the river, and I was basically the only like civilian on the trip. Showing them bushcraft stuff and all that stuff too. But we're using all my tents and there was just like three or four of them and I bring them back and I have to get all the sand out of all of them and it's like sub freezing weather and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is why I hate having like five tents,
Yeah.
like to work at one time and all that." And as I'm hosing them down, I'm thinking about Georgia Bushcraft and I'm like, "Oh, then the takedown of my booth and all that." So for spring, my wife and I are just going to try and do the most ultralight ever, sleep in the back of the car and then go, and it's going to be hilarious. But most likely, I'll probably get some piece of gear I have to review and then set up something. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah, exactly. Now, and I'm just a poncho guy for that exact reason
Yeah.
though. And actually, halfway through my deployment in Afghanistan, someone stole my ground pad, what we called a puss pad, so that's probably what I'll revert to. Someone stole mine, so I ended up just always sleeping on a sleeping bag, just like straight on the ground.
Hmm.
And I did that for a long time. Actually, most of my adventures that I've had, just freezing, just sleep straight on the ground. Could make a debris bed or something like that, but like I'm lazy and I'm like, I'll just suffer all night long and cuddle up next to this fire. So when I wake up, there's burn holes and everything, but whatever. But
Is that the woodland poncho that the poncho liner, quote unquote, was supposed to go in or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Oh,
And
dude.
so in the army, that's what we completely sleep under. That's everything. I'm a
I have
huge
that in my
poncho
little
guy.
bug out bag right now, man. I've had so many adventures under. I got mine from a surplus sale, of course.
Yep.
But like, dude, I mean, well, not like you, of course, but I've slept under mine a bit, and I just remember, gosh, we don't tarp tent anymore. It's just hard
Right.
ever to do that,
Well, but
you
here's the
know?
thing is too is like in my opinion, in my experience, I usually camp more when it's cold as opposed to hot.
Hmm.
And if I've got a tarp or a poncho and it's really cold, I can get creative with my fire and get that closer to where it's reflecting heat on me. And then I can wake up and I can stoke that fire through the night, or I'll do an upside down fire and it'll last me almost all night. But there's some safety concerns with that sometimes when you're sleeping next to it. But in a tent, the other thing is like in a tent, if you don't have a heater and you're cold, then you're cold.
Right, right, right,
Sucks to suck. Like you're in your tent. Are you going to go out and make a debris thing? Are you going to you don't have options really.
right. Yeah, and
So
at least you have the ground open in the in a
right
tarp
under a
situation.
poncho, I
Hmm.
actually, this one trip, we were at Red River Gorge and we were supposed to be hiking like 6 miles. I was with a friend and another friend and his wife, and we only made it like 3 miles before it started getting dark and it was snowing and it was getting cold really fast. And we set up our two tarps, and we had Harbor Freight tarps at this point. I don't care. I'll take them out. But and we set them up to be about 18 inches apart and did a fire in the middle with
Oh,
us.
cool. Yeah.
And the tarps ended up melting out the sides a little bit, so they widened out a little bit, but we legitimately stayed pretty warm. But it was like hardcore because it was I had that super kukri I was talking about. It was already getting dark. We're on a trail and we're like, we're not going to make it to where we're supposed to make it. Like, we got to stop right now and start getting firewood. And so there's a lot more to that story, but it ended up getting kind of a little bit hardcore. But even
Wow.
my friend's wife, I mean, we did pretty good. So, but so the poncho to me or the tarp to me is flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big deal. It's the best part is flexibility. I wish they'd make one more fireproof so I
Yeah,
could do more stuff
yeah,
close, to a fire, right? So I could really experiment instead of all these little tiny pinholes I have in most of my tarps.
yeah. Same here. So one thing, I got a canvas milsurp cotton type tarp. It wasn't treated at all, so it was stupid. It kind of pisses me off actually. But I treated it to waterproof it. I've got to do some more testing. But I think that material is going to be a lot more fire resistant than the type of synthetic materials that we normally use.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, even if it was I wouldn't want something a lot heavier, but even if it was a bit heavier, I wouldn't want like straight up waxed canvas all the time for my backpacking. But if there could be something that was wool or like the Army fire retardant ACU material or multicam material, a cloth
yeah.
material that's fire retardant but also very waterproof, I think that would be like the best case scenario. I think that would be really sick.
I have to take like Egyptian sailcloth and make it fireproof or something
Yeah,
along that line.
exactly. You might be able to get something that is fireproof, maybe even a tarp. I'm sorry, is not fireproof, maybe even a normal tarp, and there might be like a fireproof spray you could use.
Yeah. I
Now I have to
have
look into that.
I have
Some
from
asbestos.
for your for asbestos tarp. It's so warm.
Yeah.
Um
Why do my
I've
lungs
got
hurt?
I've got a bunch of from Camp Cheerio, a bunch of canvas tents that have like holes all through them, but there's parts where you can cut it up and it's made out of fire retardant material. I've been meaning to start stitching on that, but I just haven't had time yet. I
It's
can't
always
wait to.
something.
Yeah,
Especially with
always.
yeah, especially with gear. Like you want to like we've got to work and do everything else and we set aside time to adventure and then it's like, do I want to just go adventure or do I want to repair all this freaking gear?
Right, right, right. I want to go hunting, but I don't want to clean the gun, 15 times afterwards.
Right, right.
It's just
So
how it is. Hey, so what do you have coming up besides Georgia Bushcraft?
there is a homesteading prepping convention
Ooh,
in Bowling Green, Kentucky coming up.
oh, cool.
EJ Snyder came last year. I'm going to be teaching there. I believe that's in July. I'm really excited. It's fairly local to me. Jason Sparks puts it on. It's
Oh,
Kentucky
cool.
Sustainable Living. Really good guy, really good group of people, and I'm really excited. Last year, there it's like a normal show, but then around back they're doing a class where they're butchering a whole pig start to finish, and
Oh,
people are
cool.
involved in
Oh,
that.
man.
Like it's a little bit hardcore compared to normal shows you'd be used to. You know what I mean? With some actual
Yeah.
classes going on. I'm really excited about that, and then Blade Show, of course.
Hmm.
Um,
Hey,
but
do you still have the Jeep?
I do, and actually, it's on blocks right now. I got to drop the transmission. The slave cylinder went out in the ice storm, as they tend to do, but it's internal.
Uh,
So after like 1994, they went to external, as all manual transmissions should have been. And if that was the case, we would be talking about a 1 hour or less repair and replacement. But it's internal, so I've got to drop the exhaust, drop the drive shafts, and pull the transmission and the transfer case and replace it from the inside.
whoa, man. I think is that correct me? The only reason I know this is the only transmission I can name, and it's because my buddy had a YJ that he had to work on. Is that the AX5 or AX15?
Very yes. So this is the AX5. The
Okay.
AX15 is on the 4 liter. And so now what I'm going to do, these slave cylinders only last so long. Uh, I'm going to buy the bell housing from 94 or newer AX5, I think. Yeah, I'm sure it's the 5, the AX5, and then I've got to buy a few other parts. And then next time this thing goes out, I'll drop the transmission, replace the bell housing and some throw out
Oh,
bearings and
cool,
some
cool.
other stuff, and I'll transfer it over to an external so I don't have to freaking do this again. It's really dumb. I've got a locker for the front.
Hey, awesome.
Yeah, that I'll be
Is it going to be
doing.
an like a Lincoln locker
No, well, yeah, it's a lunchbox.
or
So
lunchbox? Sorry,
yeah,
lunchbox.
yeah, yeah. So real simple. Actually, for the sake of reviewing, because I'm a crackhead like that, so I bought the cheapest locker that money can buy. So I've had lockers in this
Aussie
lunchbox.
locker?
It's not even. It's a. I think it's a copy of a Spartan locker,
Wow.
which is similar
Oh,
to
that's
the.
cool.
But it was under $100 shipped.
Wow.
So, and I think it's going to work really well for me. So, I'm really excited about that. And I'm going to actually be
Dude, I
running
want
the
to help you
Jeep.
put that in. That sounds
Yeah,
incredible. Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's going to be so cool. And I'm going to actually be using my Jeep to pull a brush hog for about 30 acres on our property out here. And I want to prepare to do my own festival out here, which I plan to call Knife Fest.
Oh, cool.
So we
Let me
will
know
see with
when,
that.
2025 or 2026.
Probably we're 5 now. I'll probably try to do one 2025, but it'll probably be a lot smaller because I want to build some momentum so that 2026 I can invite people to actually travel to come for it without feeling
Okay.
guilty if it's not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
want to build momentum first.
Well, count me in. Kentucky's closer than you think for me. So if it's within my schedule, then I'll try and do it. 2025 though is getting, although I'm getting better at traveling right now. At
All right,
not doing the jungle this year for July. So gonna be with the kids.
good,
Much more
good.
important.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and we'd love to have you. And obviously, we're right here at Mammoth Cave too. So if you wanted to bring the
Oh
whole
yeah.
family and spend time at Mammoth Cave, you can do some pretty hardcore spelunking there.
Woo-hoo.
Also, we have some caves on the property that you have to crawl to get into, and we're always looking for some more stuff. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not that guy.
Okay. I
You
have to
know,
do some stretching. But
yeah,
I'm not going farther than any. I've got real friends that call if it gets like, like I don't feel like breathing out anymore and
yeah,
not being able to turn around.
yeah, I've got this weird thing where I like learning about, I don't know, disasters, like guys who dive, like scuba diving and stuff, like crazy stories. And the dude in Utah who like died face
Oh
down in a
gosh, yeah.
cave. And it's like, it hurts me to watch. Like I'm watching this documentary about it and I'm like, stop. No, I don't want to watch this. I hate it. And then I watch another one. I don't know. But yeah, I'll crawl around sure in a cave, but like you said, if I have to exhale,
Hmm.
and the other thing is like if I'm scuba diving, I'm sorry, man, I'm not squeezing anything. If I've got a tank and
Heck
oxygen,
no.
like
No
not
way.
me, man. Not my leave me in Hawaii.
It's
I like
already bad enough just to like have to breathe out. Like try not breathing and being stuck. I mean,
yeah, yeah, no.
but
So But anyways, yeah, we definitely check that out. I'm pretty excited about. Hopefully, start doing more classes here in Kentucky. Um, I've got Adventure Craft 101. I'm just going to teach people how to make feather sticks and batons.
Cool.
Uh,
Awesome.
Simple, family friendly, not much experience needed, no experience needed, and
Hmm.
I want to focus on more family classes. I've taught some more hardcore classes that involve firearms and stuff with survival in the past. And I'll do that, but it's a lot more work for me. It's a lot more like mental weight.
Yeah,
But
that's why I like teaching kids at Georgia Bushcraft. Instead of worrying about adults. Hey, let's just go find a piece of broken glass. Oh my God, this is awesome.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
exactly. And I want to like be there like with families and see the father son and help out and like
Yeah.
making batons and feather sticks is so far within my comfort zone that we can sit here, we can make notches, we can do all kinds of stuff. It's
And
almost
that
not work for me.
blows people away.
Yeah,
Blows people away. Even like bushcrafters sometimes need to take that class. So,
yeah. So, well, we should probably wrap it up here, Joe. But
okay,
man,
yeah.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate having you on.
No
Really
problem. I'll
quick
be
before
back
we
again,
go.
I'm sure, if you want. So,
Oh,
whenever
absolutely.
you need some filler, I'm there.
Yeah. Before we go, you're always releasing new knife designs, working with new companies. Is there anything you're really excited about? Maybe anything you might tease dropping at Blade Show or anything like that coming up?
Sure. Let's see. I don't know if I'll be having anything at Blade Show that's not already known, but Tops made in the US Brachimo. That'll be coming out. We have the prototype which was in 1095, but we're looking at 154 cm. Um um as the steel or possibly something else a little bit nicer or a little bit different. Work tough. The Ninjuko, we're coming out with a new size. So here's the old handle. You can see the new handle's been going to be a little bit longer, a little bit
Nice.
larger
Yeah.
for the American hands. And other stuff, the Demco project is coming along nicely. Of course, that's downstairs because I'm actively testing that. And all sorts of fun new stuff. So I don't even know what the heck is going to be coming out of Blade Show because there's so
Yeah.
much stuff.
Well, hey, I tell you what,
In
I'm
a good way.
excited to see if the Dutch bushcraft taste test ends up being accurate
Oh
on the
yes, man.
Demcos.
Oh, those guys were awesome to hang out with. And hey, if all goes well, you might see them at Blade Show.
That would be
Um,
amazing.
Yeah, they're great guys, but I got to meet Martin in person, just as legendary as he is on the show or on his show, because it's really fun to watch. I mean, the guy is hilarious. But when we got to talk with the cameras off and all that too, you could really tell like the time that they put there behind the camera. I just saw him using the knife. I was like, oh, he actually like knows how to use a knife. He's done so much time reviewing that. He's got skills.
Nice.
It's kind of cool.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, I hope I do see him there. I look forward to seeing you there, although I will
For
see you
sure.
first at Spring.
Yep,
Have a good
absolutely.
night. And reach out with any questions you have about electric fences if you get to work on that.
Thank you. Hopefully, should have it up by the time we hit Georgia Bushcraft.
Rock and roll, man. You have a good night.
You too.